The Acceptance of the Nude in the Late 15th and 16th Centuries by Maddie Dessauer. The nude is something that has always been controversial. Like Kenneth Clark says in The Naked and the Nude on page 20, like a building, the nude represents a balance between an ideal scheme and functional necessities. The naked body versus the nude. The easiest, most distinguishable difference between the nude and the naked body is the meaning behind the words. Naked brings connotations of shame, embarrassment, and uncomfort, while nude is understood to be used for educational purposes and brings none of those negative emotions. The nude is a form of art not specific to European art. The nude in the 16th century really comes down to the Renaissance artists' determination to achieve accurate anatomy within their art. Accurate really means some form of idealized dimensions. As Clark says in The Naked and the Nude, the starfish diagrams of the Renaissance theorists may be ridiculous, but the Vitruvian principles rules our spirits. It is no accident that the formalized body of the perfect man became the supreme symbol of European belief. The nude before the 15th century. Because of the dominance of Christianity, medieval art rarely produced the nude. Christianity viewed the naked body as shameful and sinful and promoted chastity above all else. When Greek artifacts were rediscovered, the Italian Renaissance, or rebirth, began. As Kenneth Clark says in The Nude as an End in Itself, on page 370, the Greeks perfected the nude in order that man might feel like a god, and in a sense this is still its function. For although we no longer suppose that God is like a beautiful man, we still feel close to divinity in those flashes of self-identification when, through our own bodies, we seem to be aware of a universal order. The Renaissance was inspired by Greek art and architecture and strived to perfect the nude. Symbolism from medieval art continued into Renaissance art. The combination of older symbolism took the nude to its peak during the Renaissance. The nude in the 15th and 16th centuries. Renaissance artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, and Giovanni Bellini all strived to perfect the nude in the 15th and 16th centuries. As Kenneth Clark says in The Nude as an End in Itself, there are the thousands of nudes in European art that express no idea except the painters striving for formal perfection. Formal perfection meant idealistic bodies with anatomically correct muscle structuring, like Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. Formal training began including the nude form regularly during the 15th century. It focused intensely on studies of the anatomical human body and achieving accurate posing and gestures. Vitruvian Man by Leonardo is a mix of math and art to demonstrate Leonardo's skilled understanding of proportion. Symbolism of the nude and Christianity's role. The symbolism a nude can depict varies tremendously. Many saints were depicted nude to symbolize their virtue and torment, while the goddess Venus was painted frequently with sensuality and humanity. Just as the symbolism of the nude varied, so did the reactions to it. Most of the European population practiced Christianity, and the Catholic Church had a massive influence during the Italian Renaissance. Art and symbolism was an important part of the Christian faith during this time because much of the common people were illiterate. There was a strong opposition to the nude, especially its place in Christianity. Depicting religious figures naked was very controversial apart from Adam and Eve, and many biblical stories began to be depicted nude to show hardship. The relationship between artists and the Catholic Church is prevalent all throughout the Italian Renaissance. Michelangelo's Last Judgment, finished in 1541, is a perfect example of the nude being present in religious paintings and the outrage that the public felt because of the existing symbolism surrounding the naked body. There are hundreds depicted in Michelangelo's Last Judgment, clothed, semi-nude, and nude. Outrage sparked over a multitude of artistic choices, including the depiction of Mother Mary, Jesus, and various buff saints. Michelangelo's version of Mother Mary is incredibly different than other Madonna depictions from the Renaissance. In most depictions of Madonna, she is a pure and motherly figure, but in Michelangelo's depiction, she is cowering in fear behind Jesus, afraid of her surroundings. Jesus himself has a precariously placed drape covering his otherwise nude body as it moves to stand up. This is a shocking and dramatic change from the typical Renaissance depiction of Jesus. The saints in the Last Judgment are depicted nude with no shame, which was outrageous to the Catholics. The rest of the hundreds of naked forms in the piece were viewed as symbolism, telling the story of the foretold Last Judgment. When the second coming happened, you would be brought before God, and he sees all. Michelangelo's Last Judgment was painted over to make it more acceptable by the Catholic Church after his death in 1564. Adam and Eve. The original story of Adam and Eve in the Bible depicts them as being naked until they eat the fruit. After the fruit, Adam and Eve are aware of their nakedness and out of shame cover themselves. When they are expelled from the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve are given coverings by God. Starting in the early 15th century, Adam and Eve start being depicted nude while being expelled, which is not accurate to the story. The Church's influence over most of the European population contributes to how the nude was portrayed in the Italian Renaissance. Albrecht Dürer's Adam and Eve, finished in 1507, changes the original story in a remarkable number of ways. In this piece, they are covering themselves before they have even eaten the fruit. In fact, looking at this piece tells us much more about the artist and his work to perfect Greek proportions than it does the actual story of Adam and Eve. All of the animals within the garden are symbolic of Germany, as well as the sign in the top left corner, which tells the viewers where the artist is from in Latin. The forest behind them is also a German forest. All of the symbolism within Adam and Eve does not contribute to the biblical story, but it does contribute to Dürer's story. This also shows the boldness of some Renaissance artists. The female nude. The idea of humanism within the Italian Renaissance played to the male gaze when it comes to female nudes. Humanism is cultural philosophy that began in the Renaissance when scholars rediscovered Greek and Roman artifacts. While hiding behind new philosophies, Renaissance artists re-idealized the female form. Female subjects were often depicted with a seductive or coy gaze with soft and fleshy skin. Titian played a massive role in the development of the female nude. An example of this would be Venus Rising from the Sea, finished in 1520. The female nude. The idea of humanism within the Italian Renaissance played to the male gaze when it comes to female nudes. Humanism is cultural philosophy that began in the Renaissance when scholars rediscovered Greek and Roman artifacts. While hiding behind new philosophies, Renaissance artists re-idealized the female form. Female subjects were often depicted with a seductive or coy gaze with soft and fleshy skin. Titian played a massive role in the development of the female nude. An example of this would be Venus Rising from the Sea, finished in 1520. The story of Venus is that she is born from the sea foam. Titian's Venus Rising from the Sea depicts exactly that. The goddess is stepping out of the waves, suggestively looking to the side as she moves her hair to uncover her nude body. Paintings like this are intended for only male eyes, and that is obvious. The female nude symbolized the ideal woman, soft, hairless, and seductive. Michelangelo's David, finished in 1504, was crafted using used marble and is one of the most recognizable statues to come from the Italian Renaissance. As you can see, it's also made appearances in SpongeBob. Michelangelo's David is depicted as a young adult male. The male nude is insanely muscular with protruding veins in both hands and arms. The hands and head are bigger to draw attention to those places. One of his hands has the famous slingshot over his shoulder, while the other holds a rock and rests at his side. His head looks off to the distance, ready for battle. This piece shows Michelangelo's ability to depict human anatomy, as well as the idealized male form, very muscular and strong. Even the detailed veins in his hand show strength and power. The nude was a massive part of the Italian Renaissance. We still use nude drawing in the training of professional artists today. Although the mostly Christian population at the time saw them as controversial, the development of the nude at the end of the 15th century and into the 16th century was an amazing tool to show the skill and talent of an artist.